back, everybody, to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you personally very much for tuning into this episode. I'm your host, Paulie DC, and let's get right on into this thing. This episode will feature Justice League International Volume 1. It was titled The Signal Masters and contained issues 1 to 6, which were released between November 2011 to April of 2012. And it was written by Dan Jurgens with art by Aaron Lopresti and Matt Ryan. Now, all I'm going to say at the beginning here is this is a title with a long, illustrious past, and obviously this iteration didn't do so great, only making it to 12 issues, but that will be something that we can discuss in the Volume 2 review. In issue number 1, our story begins with a United Nations intelligence leader, Andre Briggs, and his assistant, Emerson Esposito, trying to form the JLI with heroes that have known identities. Some of the candidates include characters we see in other titles, some of them later on, like very later on, and a couple like Plastic Man and it looks like Kong Gorilla, not at all. After some decisions are made, the members that are selected to make up the team are Mari McCabe, Vixen, Fire and Ice, Beatrice DaCosta and Tora Olafsdottir, Gabriel Ivanovich, Rocket Red, Zifu Fang, August General in Iron, Dora Lee, Godiva, which is taken from Lady Godiva, an old Anglo-Saxon noblewoman, and Guy Gardner. But when he finds out that Michael John Carter, aka Booster Gold, is assigned as the team leader, he denies the invitation. Batman also shows up doing his normal rounds throughout the New 52, and this makes up the team. Interesting choices in my opinion, interesting choices. Booster shows up at the Hall of Justice, which is under protest due to the United Nations taking it over, and he quickly shows that he's kind of a joke, advertising brands that he endorses like some kind of cheap salesman, and he also thinks that he's joining the real Justice League only to find out different. And he seems kind of pissed off and really confused about this at first, but after hardly any convincing at all, he takes on the leader position anyway. So he meets the team so they can all be introduced, but he quickly loses Gardner, but secretly gets Batman, which I mean is a pretty good trade. The team gets immediately, and I mean immediately, thrown into a mission out in South America, Peru more specifically, to find a missing United Nations research team who were seen falling into a deep fissure in the earth earlier in the issue. When the team arrives, they're attacked by some kind of animated rock creatures, because it's way easier to showcase a comic book character's powers against some random non-living something instead of a sentient being. And while they're fighting those things, a huge sentinel-looking robot crashes up from beneath the ground. Also in this issue, two Goonie extremists are seen blowing up a part of the Hall of Justice, thanks to explosives they got from a Blackhawks weapon depot, but I don't think it's ever mentioned in that title. Issue number 2 picks up with Briggs and Emerson looking at the destroyed Hall of Justice, and then finding out that the JLI can't really do anything against the giant Sentinel, which seemed kind of inactive at first. That is until Rocket Red tried to use one of his armored suit's abilities to scan any tech and gets himself blasted, which causes a battle to ensue. After failing to coordinate a team attack, Ice is severely injured and the rest of them have to retreat, which I feel like purposely or non-purposely showed how stupid the first mission was, sending the team out without hardly even knowing each other's names, and being given an airship with no medical bay, it appears. Guy Gardner is also conveniently on Earth and not in Green Lantern Corps Volume 1, and he's also in a bar that is conveniently playing live coverage of the JLI failing to take down the giant Sentinel, so he heads out to go help the team. After how the first, I don't even want to call it a mission, went down, Booster's leadership is questioned and almost lost. Batman is seen by Briggs for the first time, but realistically he does nothing about him, come on. And then 3 other of the Sentinels appear from beneath the earth, and they quickly send out some kind of signal to some big alien out in space. Issue number 3 has Briggs showing off how much he truly cares about the knockoff Justice League he made, and mentioning Emerson's perkiness. Emphasis on perky. The JLI seems busy with a plan to engage with the giant Sentinels, but from the pits underneath the earth from which they came. Booster has also been seen wearing a ring in the first 2 issues, and here it's seen clear as day that it's a Legion of Superheroes flight ring. All of the team members' powers and abilities are displayed in ranging manner in this issue, and a few possible plots and relations start evolving, beginning with Rocket Red befriending Ice, and because she's tight with fire, telling her that Beatrice causes him to have his name said in reverse. Just Google it. Speaking of fire, her and Vixen quickly become friends, and these are 2 female characters that just have a ton, I mean a ton, of potential that could have went somewhere but just didn't in the New 52. Beatrice's plasma flame abilities maybe could have become more powerful and hard for her to control, making her a bit of a wild card and scary to deal with. And if Vixen's totem charm really had the ability to give her any power in the Animalia Kingdom, then that just leaves endless possibilities. We also see Godiva with August General telling him that she's hardly on the same caliber as the rest of the team, and I mean, she's kinda right. She's pretty much a low-rent Medusa from Marvel. All the JLI units are then attacked by the animated rock creatures again, this time in much higher numbers, including Booster and Batman, who put up the most stalwart defense, but eventually they are all subdued. For a brief moment earlier in the issue, Gardner was seen spying on Briggs and Emerson, finding out that some kind of spaceship is in Earth's orbit, so he heads to check it out, and once he's inside, he's quickly taken down by the big alien that's already on board. Issue number 4 continues right where number 3 left off, as the big alien, who is called Paraxis, teleports the captured JLI onto his ship, where they find out he subatomically breaks down planets to mine their various resources, which sort of builds tension, I guess, as Briggs and Emerson are seen discussing military strikes if the team does fail, and all the while Guy wakes up just to get his ass kicked all over again. Paraxis explains his obligatory evil plan to the JLI, instead of, killing them immediately, going on about how the giant sentinels, which are actually called the Signal Men, were not even his to begin with originally, and were actually the product of some long-dead alien race. Who or why, you ask? I don't know, and I don't care. This speech, of course, allows the team to free themselves, thanks in part to some more than others, but all of them seem to be no match for Paraxis, which you'd think would cause more injury with the things he does to them, but no one sustains major injuries, so the 4 Signal Men begin to start terraforming the Earth in an attempt to incinerate the entire team in one shot. Issue number 5 kicks off with news outlets all over the world reporting on the Signal Men destroying it, and of course the evangelical ones are screaming D-Day like they oh so love to do. Booster shows that he's not totally useless, and considering that no other superheroes seem to care that 4 giant-ass robots are ripping up the Earth, the JLI is given one last chance by Briggs to save the day. The team's plan is to decoy their spaceship in order for it to get destroyed while they sneak onto Paraxis' ship, and while most of them intentionally get smacked around this time by him, Batman, Rocket Red, and Ice take control of the ship, sending it into a collision course with Earth, and this for some reason gets Paraxis to flee, and as he does, give his best Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. The JLI then causes the ship to crash into and destroy one of the Signal Men, causing the other 3 to go offline, because why not? And then things sort of wrap up with Booster asking Briggs about the damage report on Earth, with no major catastrophes or death tolls being reported, because why not? And the JLI being watched by an unknown secret source. In issue number 6, it states that it's an epilogue to what took place in issues 1 to 5, starting with Batman and Booster Gold working together, which is kind of funny to see since they have such offsetting costumes. Like, Booster, come on, you don't even have some kind of stealth mode that like the characters in Young Justice have, but whatever. The 2 take down the couple of Hall of Justice bombers and then discuss plans for the JLI going forward and how they will operate, and also how Guy Gardner may be able to stay on the team, and Batman says get it through respect, and we all know how he got Guy's respect in the past. Speaking of Guy, he's with Rocket Red and Ice, and they're on Signal Men cleanup study duty. And here we hear a little bit about Ice and Guy's past, with him mentioning that she's a goddess, which is partially true. She's also been a White Lantern. She was at Superman's death, front row, and she's also been a Black Lantern, which means she's been dead. Yeah, a character with a long history. Rocket Red is also seen here being scanned, it looks like, by some of the technology inside the Signalmen, but I don't know. Back in the United States, another duo we see together is August General in Iron and Godiva, showing him American street food, which thankfully for him, he hasn't indulged in before, and even luckier, admits to not ever having British cuisine. A bit of his origin is also told, but the conversation kind of gets sidetracked when Godiva gets suspiciously upset at him after asking a slightly personal question, but there's no time to dive in that anymore as they break up a terrorist attack. This final issue ends with Fire and Vixen accompanying Booster Gold to a meeting with the United Nations so they can argue a bit over some nonsense, but after August General in Iron steps in, upon his request, the JLI, for some reason, gets another chance. A few weeks later, the team is set to be introduced to the public in a big press conference, but just as it begins, it is seriously bombed by the unknown people that have been watching the team. Alright. This first book in the series for me is kind of a mixed bag. The art is great, don't get me wrong, with character portions being really good and excellent facial features, but we do get something that I like to call the changing eye color syndrome. Throughout the book, multiple characters have changing eye color, and I just think it's kind of lazy. Like among the creative team, can you just agree to not disagree on one thing on something like that? Anyway, once again, I will say that the character lineup in this book was kind of interesting. Godiva is a walking innuendo, and since she was the least known character to me in this title, I just wanted to mention her first DC appearance goes all the way back to 1977, with two other women also donning that name, but this one kind of seemed like she was on the team as a double agent in my opinion, due to trying to get close to Booster Gold right off the top. A close second in that category for me would be August General in Iron, who was created only 5 years prior to the release of this series, and was part of a group called the Great 10, which made me think of a cool plot line that maybe could have been, that involves him leaving the JLI under rocky circumstances, and then goes on to create that group, calling them the Justice League Asia, and having other continents follow suit, and then evolving into a civil war as to which group is superior. And since we're kind of on the subject of lesser known heroes, I thought the title would have benefited hugely from maybe picking one from the extensive library DC has and killing them off during the first mission, like maybe in the first issue or the second, and that would have maybe brought up some intrigue considering the way that the story played out, even higher stakes and more to prove. Yes, I know the book technically ends in a certain death, but I mean like a sacrifice or an intense unexpected send-off maybe right off the bat. You know, maybe, I don't know. Another thing, besides the underuse of a few characters, Booster's history of being from the future, or at least claiming to be from there, could have been utilized way more. As early as possible, I would have suggested, with him maybe fighting to prevent some kind of upcoming event, or having his own questionable plans for the future. There are just a few things that come to my mind. But the only thing he does mention that could maybe prove he's from the future is he tells August General in Iron and Rocket Red that both their countries, respectively, Russia and China, will be great allies in the future, and that is definitely all I'm going to say about that. And remember, these are just my opinions, and they're very basic on the plot lines that I'm suggesting about, and I only mention them because this series did not deserve to get the axe after only a dozen issues. And of course, if you've made it to the end of this video, I want to thank you very much personally again, and to please like, share, and subscribe, and to follow me on my social media platforms, and to join me next time for Red Hood and the Outlaws Volume 1.